you. Thank you. Welcome back from lunch. I hope everybody is full and awake. Awake, yes. Everybody's, yeah, yes, okay, good. So I have about like half an hour, I was told, and there's a lot of things to be covered, so I'm going to be speaking quite fast. And it started in 1998. So in 1998, what changed was that when Google was introduced, all the worlds of information is just become at your fingertips, right? All of a sudden, you can access all the data and all the information in the world just by clicking, right? Fast forward to today, that machine that you saw has now become your mobile phone. Right? What it changed is that it changed the way that we consume information. You're now connected to the information, the worlds of information, anywhere at any time. Right? What hasn't changed is that there's one behavior of you still looking to Google search or like any search engine to look for information that's actionable, relevant, and useful. When you want to go somewhere, when you look for something, when you want to know something, then you still go to search, even if your device or the behavior has already changed, right? So that brings us to today, where we have more than 1 billion users around the world making trillions of searches each year. And it's easily said that search has become part of our daily life as well as part of the business. So today I'm here to talk about how you can manage your online presence, or basically how can you make your website more searchable and more visible on Google search. My name is Cherry. I'm based in Singapore and with Google as a search quality analyst. My team takes care of the quality of Google organic search, basically making sure that you find what you're looking for. And our team also takes care of the relationship with webmasters, marketers, developers, and website owners in the region to make sure that we work together towards a better web as well as search ecosystem. So today, just a reminder before we start anything, the talk today is just going to be about organic search, which is totally separated from Google Ads. If you're using Google Ads, this is not the talk about Google Ads. This is about organic search, which is the part on top. And in organic search, we do not take any kind of payment or any kind of thing to list your website there on Google Organic Search. Right. So today we're going to talk about how search works, starting how search works, meaning I'll tell you roughly how, when you do a search on Google, what actually happens at the back end. Right. Second thing, we'll be giving you some foundation stuff that you should do, and also we'll end with some new stuff that you should know. So how does Google search works? Basically, there are 3 steps here, starting from crawling, and then go to indexing, and then ranking. What happens is we have a thing called Googlebot, which is a robot that we send out to look for the websites that are out there in the world. It brings back all these websites, follow links by links from one website to another. And in this place alone, we found more than 130 trillion pages. And in a day, we crawl more than 20 billion pages. Now, as you can see, Googlebot is very busy. So there are a lot of things that he has to go look for. And that's why we do smart scheduling. What it means for you is that if you have a website, you make changes to your website today, it doesn't mean that Googlebot will know right away. It doesn't mean that the change that you make on your website will reflect on Google right away. That's what it means for you. Now, there's also ways or things that you can do to make us crawl your website better, or tell us that you have made changes to your website. Things like if you use Search Console, you can tell us that these pages are important. You can request for indexing and also submit sitemap to us to make us crawl or go to your website more often. That are some of the things that you can do, which I will cover later in the presentation. Another things that you can do during this stage is also to use a file called robots.txt. Robots.txt basically is a file that tells us whether we should go or crawl or not crawl certain pages. So if you have certain pages that you think that should not be listed on Google for some kind of reasons, things like maybe the pages it's an admin page, or like if something that you don't want to be indexed on Google, then you can use robots.txt file to exclude certain pages from us from crawling. From crawling, we put everything together. Now we look for all the websites that are out there, right? We put them into one place, which is an index. This part is called indexing. In indexing, as you can imagine, our index is actually really big, right? But again, it's not limitless. We try to limit and be selective on what goes into our index and what doesn't go into our index. What it means for you is that if you have pages that are duplicated, and we see that there's no value added between the two of pages, then there's a chance that the pages that is duplicated might not go into our index at all. So it is important that you focus on the users and make sure that you're providing the value that users are looking for. Another thing that's important that we do during indexing is that we do rendering and also annotating. What does it mean? It means that we try to understand what is on your page. We're trying to understand what the page is about. We try to see where the page is linking to. We're trying to see how old is the pages, for example. And in rendering, actually, we're getting more and more and more advanced, which I will cover some of these rendering things I will cover in the last part of my session as well. So there's some changes and some new stuff exciting happening there. But basically, we understand more than just keywords already, right? And we try to understand the context of the whole pages instead of just looking for certain keywords on your web page. And the last part here from crawling indexing, we goes into ranking. Ranking is actually the most apparent to you. So it's something that you see, you are like number 1, number 2, number 3, page 1, page 2, page 3, so on and so forth. But it's actually the most complicated things out of all. We use hundreds of signals to be accurate. It's more than 200 something signals to rank your website. And if you might wonder, like, why do we use so many signals there, right? It's because we want to tailor the research result to that very moment that you are making the search. For example, we account for like spellings or any synonyms or like anything that you might make during your search. If you're using for the word change, for example, it can mean many things, right? It can mean adjust, can be convert, can be many other things, right? Depending on the context of your search queries. Another thing is we also try to tailor to more things such as the device that you're using. If you're searching on mobile phone, maybe you're looking for something. If you're searching for a laptop, maybe you're looking for something else, right? Also locations. If you're at home, maybe you're looking for something. If you're outside driving, maybe you're looking for something else. Those are the things that we take into account, and that's why I said that search ranking is actually quite complicated, and we use a lot of signals for it. Apart from that, can anybody tell me how many percentage of the search queries you think is new each day? Meaning, in a day, how many % of the things that we see has never been seen before? Nobody wants to play with me. Is it because I never bring swags? I usually bring swags, but I was in rush today, so I forgot. I'm sorry, but yeah, just play with me. How many %? 5. Okay. Anything higher? 20. 15. Sold. Okay, so actually, 15% of searches in a day are new, right? That's why ranking happens real time when you are doing the search itself. We can't actually predefine what will be the result before knowing what you will search. So ranking actually happens at that moment that you make the search itself. And mainly because we want to tailor to everything that you're looking for, and mainly also because there are a lot of searches that are new, so we can't predefine them. So what does all this means to you? Basically, it means that if you have a website, and especially if your website is big, right? If you make any changes to your website, or if you have a new website, actually it does take time for us to realize that there's changes, and it does take time for us to actually get through all the details or all the information that happens on your website. There's a way that you can help us to make it better by using Search Console. I think someone told me that this morning a few speakers talk about Search Console. So you can use Search Console to actually let us know that you have made changes to the website and you want us to come in and crawl certain pages, right? Another thing is we actually understand more than just keywords. I told you already, we try to render the pages, we try to annotate the pages, and understand more than just words that you put on the website. We actually render the pages, even if you're on JavaScript or any kind of fancy stuff. Nowadays, we're getting way better than previously in understand these things, and I will go into the details later at the end of the session as well. So, we're done with how search works. Now we're getting into some basic things, right? Some of the things that a lot of people overlook. It might be basic, but actually a lot of time when you look at the websites, website around the region, you will still see that surprisingly these are actually not implemented at all, right? So the first thing is to make sure that your website are searchable and that it looks great on Google search. The other thing is to focus on users, and the last part is to utilize the tools and the channels that we have so that we can communicate more. Right? So, what do we mean by getting your website searchable? These things not working. So, getting your site searchable, when you, a lot of time when I go to conferences, the number one questions that I always get is, how come my website is not on Google? The thing that I always suggest everybody to do is to do a site search. So you go to Google and do site, followed by colon, and followed by domain of your website. For example, if your website is example.com, you will do site, colon, and then example.com. This is the way to check whether there's any problem with crawling and indexing of your website. Basically, essentially, you are checking whether Google knows your pages or not, and Google actually put your web pages in our index or not, right? So when you check this and you realize, oh, it's already appearing, then that's a good thing, one good step, right? Which means we already know of your website and you don't have to worry, probably don't have to worry about crawling and indexing. But if you don't see your website here, there's a chance that your website might be new, or there's a chance that it might be because there's no other website on the internet that link to your website. So that's why we might not have discovered your website yet. But if you go on to Search Console and then submit your sitemap and then submit your URL there, we will be able to find your website and start crawling and indexing your website. Right. While you're doing this, you will also see that the 3 lines that appear for your website. If you look at this, can anybody tell me what is this guy selling? Selling homepage, yes, I think so. So you never know, right? This is basically these 3 lines is really, really important because it's the only piece of information that people can use to decide whether to click or not to click into your website. Remember that there are a lot of things listed on Google search and people don't spend like an hour looking through each of them. So usually we just look very, very fast, right? And then just click whatever you think is relevant to you, right? So if these 3 lines doesn't convey to your users or potential users what you're selling or what are the service or things that you have to offer, then it's actually a missed opportunity. Like people don't know what you sell basically, so there's a very low chance that people click into your website. So these 3 lines of view, which is really, really important, has to be clear, has to be unique, and it has to tell exactly what you have to offer to your potential clients or potential users, right? And there's a way to change it. So if you adjust or modify the code directly, basically it's the part that you change at meta tag title and meta tag description. In WordPress, I'm sure there's also a lot of plugins that can help you with that, right? But make sure that these 3 lines are great, right? Make sure it's clear, it's unique, and it's good enough to make people click into your website. We talked about how search works, and there are three things, right, 3 steps: crawling, indexing, and ranking. But actually, because of the behavior that changed, because of things that we make changes nowadays, in fact, on the last part, we now do ranking and showing useful responses. What does that mean? What it means is that we're trying to make people get the information that they want as quick as possible, right? What it means is that if Google search used to look like this, and you just have the 3 lines there, nowadays you realize it does not look like that anymore, right? Nowadays it looks like something like this. Okay, it's definitely not blank, but why is it not showing? Yeah, so it looks something like this, right? So fancy nowadays. So basically what you can do if you want to have your search result being like more fancy, like be it like having a review, having a stars, having prices for product, or having like say any other things that is beyond just 3 lines of text, you can do it by using structured data, right? These are some of the examples. Like in the first example, if you're selling books, it can actually show what type of books you're selling. Actually, it can also show the price and also show some snippets of the book as well. If your website is about recipe, if you're telling people how to cook, basically, you can show the review, you can show how much time it takes, and also a short snippets of the recipe. And if you're a person, if you're a celebrity, then you can also have that. So if you would like to implement this, you would go to g.co/structured data. And I'm sure for WordPress, there are also a lot of plugins out there that can help you. If not, if you're doing the code, like modifying the code itself, that you will be using schema.org, and there's a lot of ways that you can do it, right? You can use microdata, IFDs, or like JSON LD, which we usually recommend JSON LD. And if you have implemented already, there's also a tools that you can use to test whether whatever you implemented was right or not. So you can look for tools called structured data testing tool. And in there, it will be able to crawl and see whether we detect any structured data that's implemented on your website, right? Yes, I covered this already. So if you want to implement it for WordPress users, I'm sure there's a lot of plugins out there. I can't really recommend which one, but yeah, you can search for structured data and see which plugin can help you. Right. What it means for you here, it means that if you haven't looked at your title and description already, please look at them. Make sure that it's conveying all the information that is clear and then can tell people what you're selling. Right. Also, we understand that when you create website, there's a lot of part of code that maybe you're not proud of. It's not always clean and all, but it will help us a lot if you implement structured data and at least highlight to us where the prices, where the review, where the pictures, stuff like that, so we can actually directly show it on Google right away. Right? So it makes things easier for us, help you show those results to user faster. Right. Second thing, on focusing on users, and everything else will follow. So basically, we say that you should build your website with purpose. Always focus on your users instead of search engine. I think somebody else already talked about like writing contents in the morning as well. So use that and practice that. Another thing is also to make it easily accessible and fast, and also to make sure that you're providing a safe and secure experiences. In building website with purpose, basically, what all these things means is that try to focus on users instead of the search engine, understand who are the audience, and understand what are the goals of having website. If your website is to have people buy stuff online, make sure that people can purchase things easily with 1 or 2 clicks instead of having 10 clicks and spend 15 minutes to put something into shopping cart. that's definitely bad. If you have a website that's news website, for example, your goal might be for people to click on sign up. So your goals really depends on what your business is like and what you're trying to get out of the online presence. Make sure that goal is clear to you, and make sure that those things that you want people to do is easily achievable. Make sure that you help them to achieve that as fast and as easy as possible. Making things accessible and fast. Why am I showing you a goldfish? Basically, what this slide is trying to tell you is that 8 seconds is the human attention span nowadays, and it's actually shorter than goldfish. So how do you actually make a website that is for these goldfishes? How do you ensure that you're actually providing a good online experience to all these goldfishes, right? The key is to have the website that has a good user experience with a good speed, as well as accessible across all the devices. Meaning that your website has to be fast and it has to be mobile friendly. These 2 things are also a ranking factor for us, right? It means that if your website loads fast and if your website is mobile friendly, you actually have advantage in terms of rankings in Google search as well. So how do you know if you're doing well or not? How do you actually ensure that your website is fast, and how do you test out if it's accessible or not? There are tools that you can use. One is PageSpeed Insights, and another one is Lighthouse. Both of them are free. In fact, everything that I introduced today is free. All the products that I'm going to talk about today is free and also easily to use. So for PageSpeed Insights, actually it looked like this. So when you go to PageSpeed Insights, it's actually very easy. You don't have to verify. You don't have to do anything at all to it, right? You just have to basically put your URL into the box on top there, and then click on the Analyze button. When you do that, it will give you a score of how fast your page actually is loading. And if your page is not loading fast, it's also providing you with an opportunity of what you can do to improve your page speed. It's going to be tailored and specific to your website. It's actually very, very specific. It's going to tell you this certain image on your website is very big. You should reduce it. Or this certain JavaScript is blocking the loading of the whole page, so you should delay it, that kind of thing. So it's very, very actionable, and I hope you will be able to look at that and prioritize some of the stuff while actually making changes to your website. I need to walk back. So the other thing that I recommend you to use is Lighthouse. So Lighthouse is another tool that you can use to check accessibility as well as user experiences of your website. So it has an audit on performance. It has PWA accessibility as well as SEO audit as well. So it gives you a holistic picture of how your website is doing in terms of many aspects. And again, it will also give you an opportunity, as well, if you are doing if there's something that we think you should be doing. The last part is on providing safe and secure experience for users. We believe that everybody deserves to have a safe and secure experience online. So 2 things that I want to talk about today, HTTPS and hack prevention. I know that there's another session today by Leo about securing your WordPress website. So I think that will be more in-depth. I don't have to spend so much time here. I'll just go through it very quickly. So on HTTPS, if you're not on HTTPS, I recommend you to consider. Actually, also because on WordPress, it's kind of easy. They provide the support, and you can actually move to HTTPS quite easily. And it's also now one of the ranking factors for us, so it's important. For hack prevention, basically, when your website gets hacked, it affects a lot of things, right? It affects the users, it affects your brand, and on organic search, actually, we will either take your result out in a very severe case, or we will have a label saying this site is not safe. it means that people probably won't click into your website, right? So it's loss of opportunity, right? If you have that on your website, so make sure that you have those prevention in place, because cleaning a hack site is actually difficult, because you have to go through a lot of things, trying to debug, trying to see what happens, where are the root causes and everything, and then clear up everything, make sure the person cannot come back and hack you again. And on organic side of the story, organic search side of the story, if you are placed with manual action for hacked, you actually have to go in and manually ask for reconsideration as well. Meaning you have to be in Search Console and tell us that, hey, like, you know, you found my site to be hacked earlier, I fixed it already, can you please come in and check? And that also takes some time. So definitely to recover and resolve hack, it takes a lot more time if you could actually try to prevent it. In fact, we found that more than 90% of hacks could have been avoided with a lot of simple security practices, right? Something really, really simple. These are the top ways that we found that people actually get hacked. First thing is actually on compromised passwords, right? Something really easy, but actually a lot of people overlooked. Missing security updates and insecure themes and plugin. What am I showing you here? Yes, this is the most common, 10 most common passwords in the world. Anybody use any of these? Please do not raise your hand. If you do, then change it now. Because if not, I can actually take over your website right now, so don't do that. And if you use any of these, please change it today. If not now, maybe after my talk, yeah, change it. And missing security updates and insecure themes and plugins is actually very important, especially when you're on WordPress. I understand you use WordPress, and WordPress actually roll out a lot of new versions. You need to keep up with that, right? And also the theme and plugin as well. And you have to choose themes and plugin that are actually trustable, and make sure that those themes and plugin are also providing you with a continuous support, right? Not like they do it as a one-off and leave it there, and that those like might not be great. Make sure that you're using something that has a support, right? And there are some resources that you can use here. So there's a quite fun course that you can try to take. So cybersecurity course with Google. It's a new thing, and it's a short video lectures with 50 hands-on exercise. Actually, it's quite fun. So you can go to g.co/learnwebtech, right? Second thing is you can go to our developers help center. And then if you have any questions or you need more resources, you can also go to g.co/webmasters. And as I told you already, there will be a talk at 4:30. I'm probably going to attend that too. So that's purely about security, and recommend you to go to. So the last thing is actually to communicate with us more. Who in this room use a webmaster tools? Yes. So Webmaster Tools is actually an old name for Search Console. It's the same thing. Now it's called Search Console. And this is how it looks like now, right? So way more fancy, less boring, and a lot of things. So what can you do in Search Console? I heard that someone talk about Search Console in the morning. I'm just going to say it again. So in Search Console, you can check whether your website is on Google or not. And if you have a website that is big, you can actually see how many pages are being indexed and how many pages are excluded from our index in Google. In case if it's excluded, there's also a reason that tells you why certain pages are actually excluded from our index, right? Second thing is you can measure your site performance. It tells you how many clicks, how many impressions, what are the CTR click-through rate like, or what is the ranking like for each of the queries, right? It tells you what are the queries that bring in people most. And if you are on Google Analytics, I also recommend you to link your Google Analytics with Search Console, so that you will be able to see the performance and see everything that happens from Search Console until the person lands on your website, and see whether in the end that particular user convert or attain certain goals that you set or not. right? So Search Console will give you a data that's related to search only, meaning things that happen on Google search. But when they left Google search, we don't know what happened anymore. But if you're using Google Analytics and you merge them, you link them, you'll be able to see the whole funnel of how people actually find you and whether they convert or how do they actually interact on your site. Another thing is to track on rich experiences. Rich experiences I introduced to you just now already. Basically, is the part where we talk about structured data. So things beyond just 3 lines of text, right? Things that has a review, has a stars, has images and stuff like that. So Search Console also tells you how you're performing in that aspect. I skipped something. Oh, you can also debug a URL. So in Search Console, there's a URL inspection tool. So if you go in, look for URL inspection tool, actually you can put in a URL, it will tell you whether there's something wrong with that URL or not. Basically, if let's say it's not included in our index, it will tell you why. Or if it is in our index, it will also tell you things like, oh, in the past, there was some 404 error, 500 errors, or like stuff like that. So you can do that on Search Console as well. And if you're interested, you can go to g.co/Search Console. If you want to verify, I think there's a lot of plugin that you can use as well. Or you can, for WordPress, you can also use metadata. Or you can use HTML file as well. So there's a few things that you can do. Another thing, the way to communicate with us is to go to g.co/webmaster/help. If you have any questions regarding Search Console or anything at all about organic search, feel free to ask your questions there, right? So we covered the 3 basic tips here. Now we're moving on to something that probably more exciting. So then some new stuff that's happening, like actually search changes all the time, right? Like we run a lot of experiments, we run a lot of tests, be it like A/B testing or be it like user study or many things, and our algorithm actually changes a lot of time, right? Like in the last year alone, there was like 2,000 something changes, I think. So there's new things like always, right? Today I'm gonna talk about just about 3 things, I think, yeah. So just now we talked about how search works, crawling, indexing, and ranking, right? In indexing, we said that we understand more than just words, and we say that we actually do rendering during this stage, right? So in the past, what happens was that we have always been rendering these pages using Chrome 41, which is actually a very old Chrome, but very famous because a lot of people download that Chrome just to see how Google see their pages. So basically, we used to be on Chrome 41, and then whenever we try to render something, it might not work because it's very old. And if you have new stuff, like you're using Angular, if you're using any JS that is very advanced, ES6, for example, we might not be able to read them, which means that if you're on certain, like say, fancy plugin or fancy themes, we might not understand them, right? Now, what happened is we have updated our Googlebot to render pages with the latest Chrome rendering engine, so no more Chrome 41. And these are the list of some of the stuff that has changed for this from this rendering. So you can see that in the past, there was some stuff that we can't handle, things like ES6 or certain web APIs or certain library, which we can't use. But now a lot of things has become available, and what it means for you that we invest a lot in terms of trying to make sure that people are getting good user experiences on the internet. We know that people love to use JavaScript, people love to use a lot of fancy things to make sure that their users get the most out of the website. This sometimes include all this technology which we could not render in the past, but now these will all be possible. And Googlebot is also evergreen. What it means is that Googlebot will actually be an ongoing updates. It's not like we update it today and it's gonna stuck here. From now, it's gonna automatically update itself to the to the latest Chrome version that is available, give or take few weeks. Every time when new Chrome is launching, we will definitely run a small portion of the URLs first to see whether things are working fine, like basically testing on certain URLs. And if things are fine, we will then move entirely to that new Chrome version whenever it's available, right? If you want to check whether your website is being tested, or if you want to check whether what Chrome version we are using, you can also look at the user agent. So in the user agent string, we will actually include that version of Chrome in there as well, right? You can find more information at bit.ly/evergreen-googlebot if you want to know more information. Right. Second exciting things. So there is actually a new way to manage UGC. What is UGC? UGC stands for user-generated content. Basically, things such as content in the forum post, things like comments, basically things that you allow people to visit your website to key in or to generate. Right? That's why it's called user-generated content. User-generated content is actually amazing, right? We love them. It provides venue for opinions, discussion, for engagements on your website, and that's vital. But at the same time, it also provides room for spam and abuse as well. As you can imagine, a lot of time you go into certain comment section and you realize, oh, like what kind of crap people are talking about here. So, or like a lot of time there's like links going to places that you wonder why it's even there, right? So these are things that we talk about in terms of abuse and spam. So all along, about maybe 15 years already, we've been using nofollow, right? We've been introducing things called rel nofollow to people, so that people can use for any paid or sponsored links, any user-generated content, or any kind of links that we actually don't want to endorse, or the website owner want to link to, but don't necessarily want to endorse it in any kind of form. So people have been using rel nofollow for the past 15 years, but today, actually just maybe last month, we changed that to make it more detailed, right? So now we introduce things as called rel sponsored and rel UGC. I think UGC is very relevant to people in this room because I think in WordPress, there's a lot of plugin, a lot of things you can do, and a lot of stuff that's related to comments, like things like discuss as well. So these are the things that I think is important. Basically, instead of like using nofollow for all the things in the past, right? Now you can actually tell us exactly what that link is. So you tell us this link is actually going to advertisements. This link is from a comment section, from a user-generated content. This link, if you're still using nofollow, it basically just means that you want to link to that site, but you don't want to endorse it in any way, including you don't want to give credits into the ranking as well. So this is the example of how it is actually used in real life. So your normal regular link, right, AHIF, and then you just basically put a rel there according to the type of the things that you have, right? There are some notes here. So actually, if you're already using nofollow, you can do nofollow and UGC in the same tag as well, the link attribute. So in the attribute, you can add as many as you want. You can do UGC sponsored. You can do nofollow UGC. It's fine. You can put many things, not just one. And basically, these links attributes from now, we're going to treat it as hints about what to include or not to include in our index. So in the past, when you say nofollow, we totally stop and don't follow the link at all, right? When you say nofollow, we just don't crawl, don't go further. But for now, We might go further, we might crawl that link, but then we understand if you say it's an ad or it's an UGC or anything, we'll see how we can treat them, or we'll basically use it as a hint on what we should do next, right? There's no incentive or punishment. If you don't do it, it's fine as well. There's some music going on, which oh, why don't I get that kind of music here? But it's fine. So, but there's no incentive or punishment if you don't do or do that. But then it helps, right? If the website is linking to you. In the past, if they put no follow, it means we won't even discover your website or that particular pages. But now we can actually discover that. It's just that we might treat it however differently on the signals that you give, right? So in WordPress specifically, this is important for you. There are some stuff that you can use, like WP rel UGC. That's the method that will add that particular no-follow UGC into your website or into your templates, right? So these are the things that you can use. This, you can find out more information at make.wordpress.org, right? The post is from October 3rd, I think, so you can look for that. Right, last thing. My time is up, and then I was told that the next speaker is going to throw stuff at me if I don't go down the stage soon. So last thing, SiteKit. SiteKit is basically a tool that's available for all the WordPress users and built for WordPress users. And it was launched just yesterday. So I actually recommended you to use. It's now in the WordPress plugin directory already, so you can install that directly. It basically helps bring things from Google Search Console, Analytics, AdSense, and PageSpeed Insight into one places. It shows you information about particular pages as well, not just the whole website, and gives you the information on the page itself in the WordPress admin bar too. So I think that's really great. And the setup is really easy. You don't have to do anything technical at all. So it's just like 1, 2, 3 click kind of thing, right? And it also give you milestones and some messages that's important. So if you're interested, you can go to sitekit.withgoogle.com or look for the Google SiteKit in the WordPress plugin directory. And actually, I'm done for today. So if you have any questions, you can go here, or you can also ask me questions off the stage. Thank you.
Well, Sherry, thank you very much. We have a little cap for you here to say thank you very much for speaking at WordCamp.